and welcome. And nice to have you with us, kicking over broadcast day here on Mad Dog Unleashed. Good to have you with us on the 6th day of February, the year 2018. Talking about what's going on in the world of sports. Colin Schmeling, Billy Z, yours truly, Christopher Russo, on a Tuesday in early February as we chat to you on the great Sirius XM 82. We'll do a few things today regarding these franchises. We'll spend some time with the Patriots, with Shaughnessy. We'll spend some time with the Eagles, with Didinger. That between now and 6 o'clock on Eastern time on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll start, of course, with football. We'll make the turn, which is always a very hard turn to make if you're a talk show host. And really anybody. A columnist, same thing goes for him, too. Columnists always got to do 3 or 4 columns a week. And they're so specialized now they can maneuver. But for the talk show host who's out there every day, it is a little tricky to make that transition, especially off a major event like this. It's one thing to go from nothing in August to the NFL. It's another thing to go from the NFL to nothing. So we will do that in the next few days. We will make that transition. We will milk the football for another day or so until we feel that we've squeezed the grapefruit dry, and then we'll go to some other things. We'll get you set up a little college basketball later in the week. We'll do a little NBA trading deadline a little later in the week. So we'll do some things as we move into the middle of the month. We'll get on to some other things. But right now, we're centering the NFL, and there are 2 themes that have developed off the championship, off Super Bowl Sunday. There are 2 themes that have developed. The first theme is the Foles-Wentz scenario with the Eagles. That doesn't appear to be that dramatic, mainly because Foles seems to be such a good guy, and now that he's got a championship and never again has to buy a dinner or a cocktail in Philly, from that standpoint, it sounds like he's going to be okay, at least next year, in being the backup quarterback to Wentz. We all know how important backup quarterbacks are in the NFL. Just look at the fact that the Eagles won the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. That's all you need to know. If they didn't have a good one, they wouldn't have won the whole enchilada after Wentz went down in December. So you need one, though, and we don't know about Wentz. He had a bad injury, tore his ACL and his MCL. You have to figure he'll be okay. He's young and everything else. He's into it. We get that. But, you never know. September, a little rusty, a little out of it, little this, little that. Cautious. You can't just get rid of Foles because you want to get rid of Foles because you think you can get a draft pick out of him. He, trade high, the whole bit, not making much money, $4 million. A lot of teams need quarterbacks, 5 or 6, so why not unload him here and get yourself as high a draft pick as you possibly can? Would not be a first rounder, of course, but, maybe a second or a third rounder when he's coming off 2 tremendous performances back to back. I guess you could think along those lines, but if you do, you eliminate the idea of having any insurance, and you also put yourself in a scenario whether Wentz is not 100% yet. You need to get yourself off to a decent start next year. Plus, Foles is the sort of guy that I think will be able to handle it. I don't know about in 2019, but in 2018, I don't see Foles going crazy to play. He's been sort of a nomadic bounce around kind of QB most of his career anyway, so I don't see Foles, barking up a storm about how he's not playing next October. I think he know what he's getting into. Seems like him and Wentz get along pretty well. Wentz seemed to help him. You would think he'd help Wentz with this transition stage back into a starter. So from that perspective, I think that you'll see Foles stay. I don't think the Eagles, plus the fact I think it's bad against the football gods. I think it's bad karma to immediately trade the player who hoped you win a Super Bowl and to trade him before the next year begins. I just think that you're taking an unnecessary chance of upsetting the synergy of your franchise. You like to see him enjoy the opening night with the championship banner and all those kinds of things. Let him get his huge ovation. I mean, it's a little weird. He wins a Super Bowl and then 3 months later off he goes. So I think they're going to keep him. I think it's probably I think it's the correct move unless they were bowled over with an opportunity to trade him, which I don't think they would be. So I think from that perspective, I think that is the right move, and I think they make it, and I think he's got the right personality for it at the moment. Plus, he's sitting on a championship, so there's nothing to prove. I mean, he can't do anything better than he did in these last 2-3 games. So I would think, and he played a lot better against Atlanta than people give him credit for. By the way, I know they only scored 15 points in the game, but Foles played better than that game than you think. He didn't make any mistakes. They managed the game properly. I understand he was more a caretaker in that game, but he did his job. He didn't lose the game for him. The defense made a stand late in the game. He got a late field goal at the end of the half. I mean, he overall did not play a poor game against Atlanta. He blossomed, obviously, against Minnesota and the Patriots, but he wasn't bad also in the Atlanta game. I think he stays. I think that's the first question here as far as the offseason is concerned, and we'll get to Didinger about that later. The second theme, and more interesting one, of course, is New England and really Malcom Butler. And it's hard to read Belichick. You're never going to find out what, in fact, triggered this benching on Sunday. You're not going to find out from him. You're not going to find out really from anybody in Patriot land, because if they do utter this and tell you exactly what went down, they're going to be cut. They won't be on the team next year. I don't care who they are, even Brady. And he would never say anything, but not him. But, I mean, you get the idea. If anybody and it would have to be somebody on the defensive side of things. If somebody said something, they are going to be ostracized and they're going to be sent packing. And nobody wants to leave the Patriots with Belichick because you can win a championship every year, plus they got the quarterback and the whole bit. Patricia's not going to say anything in Detroit. He'll be asked it whenever he has his press conference, but he will not say anything. You will not hear from Belichick again until minicamp in April. So, I mean, he's gone. He did his conference call yesterday with the reporters. He saw him after the game for 10 minutes, and that's it. I mean, Belichick, and that is why I don't kill reporters on that setting like yesterday or Sunday, asking the Gronkowskis and the Bradys of the world their future, because you're not going to get I know it's 10 minutes after the game, and normally it's incredibly it's just not non-applicable, and it's not the thing you do. But since you're not going to hear from Brady for 9 months, you probably, he's 40 years old. It's not the worst thing, but you're not going to hear from Belichick now either. Now, listen, Butler might tell his buddies around the league, and you might get hints from them. You already got a hint from Browner there, so you might get a hint from them what in fact this was. But as far as getting a definitive, this is the reason why, you're not getting it. So, the Ian Rapoports, I'm going to read you what he said here in a minute. The Peter Kings, who we all love. I mean, you get all these conjectures, whether the Mike Reeses of the Boston Globe, we'll do a little of it with Shaughnessy. It's just chatter. I mean, you're not going to get anything that's going to be on the table. Here's the reason why he didn't play. That's going to make sense left and right. You're just not going to get it. So we're going to sit there. We're going to, we're going to chew on this for the next 24 hours, and we're going to try to figure out if Belichick is a genius or is an idiot. Most of the people out there in the media world are going to take this is the biggest gaffe in the history of professional football. Gaffe's the wrong word, because this is not a decision that a strategy decision. Gaffe is a strategy decision. This is a philosophical decision from Belichick. This is the way he operates, and you can disagree with the way he operates all you want. It's not a gaffe, which I guess Skip Bayless called it today. Stephen A. killed it. The worst, it's evil, not playing him, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, the guy's won 5 Super Bowls. We'll get to him in a second. Here is what Rapoport said today, and you can take this with a grain of salt if you wish, but I'll read it to you just for the hell of it. There are several factors, he, of course, NFL Network. There are several factors that led Malcom Butler, one of the team's top defensive players, to not be on the field for the Super Bowl. Among those, quote, he showed up a day later than his teammates because he was sick. Remember, he was not an opening night, so he did not go on a team plane. He was ill. That was a factor. All right, so he got off to a slow start during practice sessions. All right, I'm also told that during practice, now I don't know who told him this. It had because the coach is not telling him anything, so it had to be a player. I'm also told that during practice this week, he really struggled, had a rough week, perhaps because of illness, but maybe because of other things, whatever those other things may be. That was one thing they had to consider in putting Eric Rowe out there instead of him. I'm also told there were disciplinary issues. There was a small or minor violation of team rules that happened earlier in the week. You got to read curfew. And then there's some attitudes, frustrations as well. So that's a very generic, let me throw everything out there, and one of them might stick responses from Rapoport regarding Butler. Now, listen, I don't see the Patriots on a day-in, day-out basis. Nobody, and I know Evan Cohen thinks he is, but he isn't. He made the comment to me he didn't have a good year anyway. Nobody's looking at the coach's tape. So Evan Cohen's watching the ball games over the mozzarella sticks and kids driving him crazy, the 2-year-old. The fact that he is breaking the game down with the assistant coaches and we're looking at every play in isolation is a bunch of nonsense. So the people out there who claim that Butler hasn't played well in 2017, I mean, that's just, that's a bunch of nonsense. Unless you have the coach's tape or a broadcaster a la Sims, as an example, you have no idea on a week-to-week how he played. All I know is they were 13-3, and every time I watched him, he was out there 97% of the time. So he must have been doing something right. But I know there's some themes out there that he wasn't that big a loss. So you can go with that if you wish, that this is no big deal because of his ability. He's going to be a free agent. Sounds like he's out of there in March. He's annoyed about Gilmore's big contract. I can't answer. But, I mean, a lot of people seem to think that might have that he wasn't playing well anyway, so what's the big deal? I don't buy it. I think, when you're giving up 41 points, you could have tried to play him somehow, some way, find a slot for him, get him in there a series. Let's see if he can turn it around. But I admire Belichick on this, and I'll take the coach's scenario with it. I'll go with him. Number one, he's won 5 championships. He's the second or best. You pick. It's up to you. He's the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. After Lombardi or before Lombardi, he's right there. That's incredible. That doesn't mean he can't make a mistake, but that's a great compliment. And when you are that good, and you have earned your stripes, and you've won 1 million of these Super Bowls, and he was great in the Bill and Bill thing, by the way, on ESPN, which I'll get to a little later on. Great. Phenomenal. When you have earned what he has earned, you have a right to make any decision you want, and nobody should say anything. He's Bill Belichick. All right. There are certain scenarios where a coach can do what he wants. This is not, Todd Bowles. All right. This is not some guy out there who hasn't won. This is a guy who's won 5 times now. Now, I mean, this is not a using timeouts like it was in the Seattle game, which you almost blew. This is not play calling or this, that, and the other. This is not even a Garoppolo trade, which didn't make any sense. This is a decision about a defensive back that he opted not to play. Now, he's a defensive coach, and he's a secondary coach. Remember, his strength is the secondary. Him and Saban, that's what these guys do. I mean, they love working with secondaries. That's Belichick's name. This is what he does. He was a special teams coach, then he went into the secondary. So he has earned the right, Belichick, to make a call on an alignment, a bunch of players. Especially at that position. This is not anybody else. This is somebody. This is his strength, defense. This is his really isolated. So this is his little group, the secondary. If he decides that he doesn't want to play Butler for whatever the reason, I mean, normally you got to let him go and make that call. I mean, Chuck Wilson did not play in this Chuck Mercine did not play in the Super Bowl after he played great against the Rams and the and the Cowboys in the Ice Bowl. The old Chuck Mercine played for Green Bay. Lombardi went with Ben Wilson. Never heard of him. He went out there. He had 60 yards rushing. So, I mean, it was the right call. He made a hunch and it worked out. Now, this one was not a hunch, or if it was a hunch, it didn't work, while Lombardi's did. I bring back the Super Bowl II because America's game, they explain that. And Belichick is so good and has earned the right to decide how he wants to utilize his personnel. And nobody really should comment. I understand it looks bad. They scored 41 Philly, and they looked awful. Guys wide open all over the place. And, on the surface, it appears that Butler could have helped them. Or at least, if nothing else, try him. But Belichick is also, without any ifs, ands, or buts, has earned the right as a NFL coach, one of the greatest, if not the greatest in the history of the sport. He has earned, and he's not an old fart. And this is a guy who's still sharp as a tack, who's back in another Super Bowl, who does everything brilliantly. He coached a great game against Jacksonville. Never panicked, coached a great game. He has earned the right to handle it the way he wants to handle it. And I think that's the way you got to leave it alone. Yeah, I'm a little puzzled by it. I like to find out. You would think there'd be more than just this Rapoport explanation. You'd like to think that he came in at 4:00 in the morning on Sunday, half in the bag, with bong hits all over the place, and going to bed at 6 a.m. for a game in 24 hours or 12 hours, and maybe that did it. But maybe that wasn't it. It was a little bit more simplistic. It wasn't as egregious as, say, coming in at 4:00 in the morning, a la Max McGee. But the thing I want to tell you right now is that this is Bill Belichick. This is not some guy we haven't heard of. And if he decides he doesn't want to play Butler for whatever the reason, you have to accept that. You can't quibble with a genius, and he's a genius. 18 after the hour, we continue. Mad Dog Unleashed.